Imagine standing on a golf course. The crowd is silent, not politely silent, but holding their breath silent. The kind of silence that happens when thousands of people collectively forget how to breathe. The ball is lying in a position that every professional golfer in that stadium has already written off. The lie is impossible. The angle is wrong. The wind is working against him. His caddy has already subtly shaken his head. Television commentators are whispering damage control. And then, he steps up. No hesitation. No visible fear. Just a man, a club, and something that the rest of us will spend the next 20 years trying to explain. He swings. And what happens next doesn't just defy expectation. It defies the known boundaries of what a human being with a golf club is physically supposed to be able to do. The ball travels through the air in a shape that seems to argue with gravity itself. It curves, it climbs, it drops, and when it finally finds the hole, the silence doesn't just break. It explodes. Grown men cry. Strangers embrace. A commentator somewhere loses the ability to form a coherent sentence. And for one extraordinary moment, golf, a sport built on precision and patience and quiet dignity, becomes the most electric thing on the planet. These are the shots that shock the world. And they're more unbelievable than you've been told. If you've ever watched a moment in sports and felt something move inside your chest that you couldn't quite explain, drop a flag in hole in the comments right now. Because this video was made for you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. Every week we bring you stories from the world of sport that go far deeper than any highlight reel ever could. Let's go back to April 2005. Augusta National Golf Club, Georgia. The Masters Tournament. One of the most prestigious sporting events on earth. A competition where legends are not just made, they are permanently carved into the fabric of history. And on this particular Sunday, a man named Tiger Woods was in trouble. Not the kind of trouble that casual sports fans understand when they use that word. This was real trouble. He was on the 16th hole, a par 3 that stretches across a shimmering lake, with the green sloping dramatically away from where his ball had come to rest in the rough above the putting surface. The shot he needed to play was, by any rational assessment, not a shot at all. It was a prayer dressed up in athletic clothing. His ball was sitting on a slope above the hole. The green between him and the pin was so severe, so unforgiving, that the only way to stop the ball near the hole was to chip it with such delicate, almost surgical precision that it would barely kiss the surface, and then, through some divine cooperation between gravity and friction, slowly, painfully slowly, roll toward the cup. That's the theory. In practice, on that slope, under that pressure, in front of a crowd of thousands and a television audience of millions, it was considered virtually impossible. Tiger crouched. He studied the slope the way a chess grandmaster studies the board, reading not just what was there, but what could be there. His caddy, Steve Williams, stood silently. The crowd leaned in, and then Tiger chipped the ball. For a moment, just a brief, agonizing moment, it looked like nothing special. The ball rolled across the green slowly. A little too slowly, some thought. But then something shifted. The slope caught it. Gravity whispered something to physics. And the ball began to curve toward the hole with an inevitability that felt almost supernatural. It crept closer, and closer, and then, impossibly, it stopped, right on the lip of the cup, for one long, dramatic second, as if the universe itself was deciding whether to grant this miracle. And then it fell in. The roar that came from that crowd wasn't just excitement. It was something more primal, the collective exhale of thousands of people who had just witnessed something they would never fully be able to describe to someone who wasn't there. Tiger's reaction, that fist pump, that single roar, wasn't just celebration. It was relief. It was disbelief. It was a man confronting the outer edge of what even he thought was possible. Think about what it takes to execute a shot like that under that kind of pressure. What runs through your mind when the entire world is watching and failure is not just possible, it's expected? Drop your answer in the comments. Because I genuinely want to know. But Augusta doesn't hold a monopoly on miracles. Sometimes the most unbelievable golf shots don't happen on pristine championship courses with manicured fairways and roaring galleries. Sometimes they happen somewhere far more ordinary, and that somehow makes them even more impossible to process. In 2016, during the second round of the Open Championship at Royal Troon, a 46-year-old American named Phil Mickelson found himself on the 6th hole. a par 5 known affectionately as Turnberry's twin, facing a lie that had no right to produce anything remarkable. His ball had found the deep, unforgiving rough that borders the links course. The grass gripped the club head like a trap. The wind off the Firth of Clyde was unpredictable. His stance was compromised. Even reaching the green in regulation was going to require something close to a minor sporting miracle. What Phil did next wasn't just a great golf shot. It was a statement. A 230-yard shot from the rough, under wind, with restricted stance, that not only found the green, but found it precisely, stopping within realistic birdie range. The commentators struggled. One simply said, "How?" And that single word, that single, honest, overwhelmed syllable, told you everything about what had just been witnessed. Phil Mickelson was not a young man chasing his first major. He was a veteran chasing a legacy. He'd already won 5 majors. He didn't need this. But there is something about a man who knows the end of his career is on some far horizon, who plays not with desperation, but with a kind of beautiful, defiant precision that hits differently. If you've ever watched someone refuse to accept that their best days are behind them, you know exactly what this felt like. Now, let's talk about the moment that is perhaps the most mathematically implausible thing to ever happen in professional golf. A hole-in-one is already a statistical rarity. The odds for an amateur golfer are roughly 12,500 to 1. For a professional, it's still 1 in 2,500. But what happened at the 2021 Masters tournament on the 6th hole was something that stretched even professional probability into the realm of science fiction. 2 players, same hole, same round, back-to-back holes-in-one. Victor Hovland and Will Zalatoris, on the very same pin, within minutes of each other. The mathematics of that happening are so staggering that when statisticians were asked to calculate the odds, the numbers they produced sounded less like statistics and more like poetry. The crowd didn't quite know how to respond. The first hole-in-one produced the expected eruption: cheering, disbelief, celebration. But when the second ball disappeared into the same cup moments later, something different happened. There was a pause, a collective human moment of processing, as if the brain needed just a fraction of a second longer to accept what the eyes were reporting. And then the roar came, louder than the first, because it carried with it the weight of statistical impossibility turned reality. If there's a shot in this video that makes you feel like maybe the universe has a sense of humor, maybe even a sense of drama, it's this one. And if this story is giving you that feeling, hit that like button. Not for the algorithm, but because something in this video moved you, and that feeling deserves to be acknowledged. But here's where this story takes a turn that even the most devoted golf fan might not know. Because the most unbelievable golf shot in history didn't come from a major tournament. It didn't come with television cameras and corporate sponsors and crowds of thousands. It came from a teenager, a 17-year-old amateur golfer named Guan Tianlang, the youngest player ever to compete in the Masters, standing on a course where every other competitor had decades of professional experience, millions of dollars of sponsorship, and careers built specifically to handle the pressure of Augusta National. Guan had none of that. What he had was something rarer. He had absolute, uncomplicated belief. He played Augusta like he wasn't afraid of it, because in some profound way, he didn't yet know enough to be afraid. And on the second hole of his first ever Masters round, he produced a shot, a long iron from a challenging lie, that flew with a purity and precision that made seasoned professionals watching from the gallery go quiet in a way that had nothing to do with golf etiquette and everything to do with recognition. The recognition that comes when you see a talent that exists in a different register than ordinary skill. He didn't win the Masters. He was 17, but he stood on that fairway and made a shot that belonged to the ages, and the golf world looked at this teenager from China and understood, quietly, without announcement, that they were watching the early frames of a story that hadn't been fully written yet. There is something about youth stepping onto a stage that was built for giants and refusing to be small. It doesn't matter what field you're in. That feeling, that specific, electric feeling, is universal. And finally, the shot that, more than any other in this video, changed how the world thinks about what is possible in golf. The WGCCA Championship. Doral, Florida. Tiger Woods, already a legend, already a walking monument to sporting greatness, steps onto a fairway and faces a shot that his own team has mentally surrendered. The ball is behind a tree. The angle to the green is blocked. A safe layup is the only sensible play. Every calculation, every percentage, every rational reading of the situation points to one conclusion. Take your medicine, play safe, protect your score. Tiger took none of that advice. Not from his caddy. Not from the voice of reason that presumably lives somewhere in every professional golfer's head. He shaped a shot around the tree. A low, curving draw that threaded through a gap so narrow that the margin for error was measured not in feet but in inches, and put the ball on the green. Not near the green. On it. In position. When asked about it afterward, he said very little. Because some shots exist beyond language. Some moments in sport reach a frequency that words simply cannot access. What Tiger did on that fairway wasn't just athletic excellence. It was a kind of artistic courage. The courage to look at a situation that everyone has decided is impossible and say, quietly but absolutely, I don't accept that. That's not just a golf story. That's a human story. That's the story of every person who has ever refused to accept the limits that circumstance tries to place on them. These shots, Tiger's chip at Augusta, Phil's iron at Troon, 2 holes in 1 on the same pin, a teenager who didn't know he was supposed to be afraid, and a draw around a tree that shouldn't have existed. They aren't just remarkable moments in sport. They are evidence. Evidence that human beings, under extraordinary pressure, in extraordinary circumstances, are capable of things that defy easy explanation. Golf is often described as a quiet sport, a patient sport, a sport of stillness and calculation, and it is all of those things. But it is also, at its most electric, a sport of impossible moments, of physics briefly giving way to will, of a ball finding a cup it had no right to find, of a shot curving through the air in a shape that makes even the people watching it wonder if they're dreaming. If these stories made you feel something, if somewhere in this video you found yourself holding your breath the same way those crowds did, then you already understand why golf matters. Not as a game, as a mirror, as proof that sometimes, in the right hands, under the right pressure, the impossible is just the possible that hasn't happened yet. Subscribe to this channel, not because I'm asking you to, but because somewhere in the next video, and the one after that, there is another story exactly like this one. A story about a human being at the edge of their limits, doing something the world said couldn't be done, and you deserve to be there when it happens.